Today the focus is on you. You are somebody who has a tremendous influence on young people. I was telling you about my daughter. I told her that I am having a conversation with you. What is the biggest issue you see in young people today? What is the one thing that you feel that you can contribute in? I know you're contributing in terms of education, in terms of skilling, in terms of mental health. But out of these three, which is the most important you feel?
Firstly, thank you, and thank you so much for having me here. It's very lovely always to be back in Delhi, which is my hometown.
And she went to college across the road.
Yeah, right across
LSR.
at Lady Shri Ram. So this is very much home. I think, honestly, after spending quite a lot of years now working with young people on the field, my journey started in humanitarian work on my campus in LSR. And what I really realized there was being surrounded by these dynamite women, you know, from all over the country who had really fought against some very, very difficult circumstances to be there, to get an education and hone themselves. I think what we really are fighting for as young people is to have a voice. It's to have a seat on the tables of change, because everyone who's in decision-making positions is not representing our desires, our anxieties, and our vision for the future. And until we contribute to the future that we're going to be inheriting, I don't think we're going to feel like we belong ever. So whether it's education, whether it's upskilling, whether it's mental health, all of it gets subsumed under having a stronger voice and having better representation.
Understood. I think the thinking of young people is best understood by young people. I'm not saying other people don't, but you identify because it comes naturally to you. Now, mental health is a big issue.
Yeah.
Almost officially 15% of Indians are suffering with some form of mental health issue. Unofficially, the numbers are maybe 6-7% more. As somebody who has a tremendous influence on young people, what would you say to this?
Well, I think that, you know, famously, my father's generation and generations that came around his time always say that they never had the luxury of being made aware of mental health struggles. And if that can come from an educated household where being allowed to express that we're facing a mental health challenge is considered a luxury, I think the taboo and the stereotype around it is still so severe that my generation is struggling not with, I think one is with going through the problem, but the second is that there's still nobody to hear us.
Sure.
And our anxieties are becoming more deep-rooted because we have a climate crisis that we know our children are going to be born into. We went through the most significant developmental period of our lives in a pandemic. These are some very, very catastrophic kind of events that we try to normalize. We try to make it seem like they're not affecting us too much, but the truth is that they are. I think about whether I can even have a child when my time comes in the kind of world that exists today, right? And that creates a deep-seated anxiety. And I think that we don't orchestrate enough conversations. I had the privilege of going to one of the best arts colleges in the country, and I can't remember us huddling together often enough at all to talk about, is one of our friends suffering a depressive episode? Is one of them fighting with their own identity and not understanding it well enough? And my entire endeavor now in working with the UNDP and in many other campaigns that I've been running on my own is to try and make it more accessible and to try and destigmatize it. But it's a long and arduous journey.
So first is identification, then is conversation,
Absolutely.
you know, giving them a voice and saying it's okay
Yeah.
to go through this. You know, the amount of anxiety young people, I'm not saying people like me don't have anxiety. You know, we have low energy, I don't call it anxiety, but some days I have low energy. But young people are they're more prone to anxiety. That's what I've seen. How do you think young people can deal with anxiety?
Well, I mean, definitely not any professional to comment on
Sure.
that, but just from being someone who's dealt with my fair share, you know, I think being a regular girl growing up in Delhi and entering the world of cinema and celluloid has been a extremely fulfilling but also challenging journey, because there's no blueprint, there's nobody telling you
There's
what
no playbook.
there's absolutely no playbook. There's no proportionality to effort and reward.
Sure.
And I think for someone who is a classified nerd, extremely academic, very structure oriented, that in itself brings a lot of anxiety, you know.
Sure.
And what I've realized is what really helps is firstly that screen of us that goes with us everywhere, really limiting our relationship with that. The amount,
So minimizing your screen time.
and in a way that really kind of helps increase your concentration and makes you think less about other people and more about yourself in your day. You know, I think my generation spends too much time just looking at what did someone else get up to, how did she look at her wedding, and how did he propose to her, and those kinds of things, right? But actually what matters is, when we wake up, are we feeling centered? Are we ready to take on the day? Do we have that clarity of thought to take on any challenge? So I think anxiety is a dynamic beast that needs to be treaded with a lot of caution. And it's something that needs to be dealt with very sensitively.
Sure. You're right, minimizing screen time and not comparing. You know, that's, I mean, it's difficult to get to zero, but minimizing it, right?
Yeah.
I think two very practical tips, Sanjana, you've given. Now let me ask, there's a huge divide between India and Bharat, especially when it comes to education or skilling. Tell me how, through your own efforts as a UNDP ambassador, you're trying to bridge that divide.
So it's a systemic issue. I think primarily two things. One is just putting the spotlight on the need for primary education being extremely strong, right? I'm a huge proponent of education being a propeller in a way nothing else can. I think it unlocked doors of opportunity for me that I never thought would be possible. And I think that a solid education not only makes us potentially have a far more lucrative career, which is why most people chase degrees, but it makes us a much better citizen of the world. It teaches you empathy. You realize that there's many things to be curious about, many things to learn, and therefore it keeps you humble. So I think this incredible youth demographic that India boasts of, when it's given that simple, basic, trusted education, it can be an unbeatable force. And we're focusing on that a lot through many programs that are running in the heartland. And what that allows us to do is, when these children grow up and become of an age where they're going to college or can become entrepreneurs, we're really focusing on encouraging them to hone that entrepreneurial ability. I've been working with the UNDP on the Youth Collab for the last 4 years, which is an accelerator program for social entrepreneurs. And we identify certain incredible young minds who are doing, whether it's a business or starting a foundation that has a very strong fundamental social impact bone. And they get an incredible boost of funding and other support to take their programs further. And that it's only been growing and growing. The Youth Collab has we have many more chapters, we have many more applicants. So I think that's exactly what young people want. They want support and encouragement, and then kind of honestly, the sky is the limit.
Well, thank you so much, Sanjana. You know, the difference between my generation and your generation, and more your father's generation, is that I thought of giving back when I achieve something, you know. I think these days when I see people like you, their idea of achievement is giving back, you know. Even if they, much before they get in traditional terms. So really, I think this generation is much more conscious of what their responsibilities are and are contributing in a deep way. My last question to you before I bring in the audience. As a young person, how do you balance achieving your own goals, professional goals, you're a performer, you're an actor, and other goals, and also giving back to the society?
You know, the truth today is I'm turning 30 next year, and I don't see these goals as separate from each other. I really don't. My journey, like I said, started in 2014 on LSR's campus, and I don't even see it as giving back. I feel like I get too much in return every time I'm on field, every time I'm working with young leaders, change makers, children. Firstly, they make me a better artist. I think it helps me become much more grounded. I'm in touch with different corners of our country. And it also makes me realize that true joy lies in collective action. I don't view individual ambition as at least my life's ultimate goal. More money in the account or more accolades just to take to my own home is not nearly as satisfying as seeing a program take off where 10 new young entrepreneurs were birthed or 100 new children got an education. So I really do believe for this to be my core purpose, and I see my incredible audience connection as a huge, honestly, propeller to take this vision ahead.
They're intertwined in some way.
They really are, and I think that young fans also want to stand for something. They want to have something to care about. They just sometimes seek inspiration.
Though I said last question, you know, I see young people using lots of AI tools, which is good, but I was reading this study, it is primarily American study, that fourth graders in US schools, because they're using AI tools so much, their ability to read and write, just read and write, forget other things, is severely diminished. What do you have to say to that? I'm sure in some way in India also it is impacting. I see my son who's 17 and a half, you know, he's in class 12, using AI tools. My daughter won't, she didn't. And she keeps telling my son, don't use these, son, don't use these.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you have to say to this?
I'm of the strong belief that AI assistive tools need to have an age limit. I don't think children up until 18 should be given access to all kind of AI assistants, because we, to write a paper, had to spend 15 hours a day for 10 days to collate our notes and make our thesis, right? And I feel that's what honed my mind. That's what made me have an opinion. That's what made me gain knowledge about the world. So I think in your profession, once we're having to increase efficiency, reduce costs, and meet all those targets, AI is assisting us all. But when we're in that learning and developmental phase, we need to first hone our own cognitive abilities before we depend on AI for them.
Absolutely, Sanjana. You're very, very wise, and I'm sure it impacts some people, and they are, you know, they kind of do some action about it.
Yeah.
And action is most important thing. And a thought can inspire to do an action, and that's what you're doing through your work. We can take one or two questions for Sanjana if there are any questions. Deepika, you want to ask a question? Sir, you want to ask? Can you get a mic to the gentleman here? Quickly tell who you are and a short question.
So, few years back, quarter-life crisis was a buzzword. Today, it's a reality, right?
Organized crisis.
quarter life crisis.
What?
Quarter life crisis. We had midlife
Quarter life,
crisis, we have
quarter
quarter
life
life crisis.
You know,
which
can I
is-
tell you, I like people use this word toxic and quarter. Honestly, let's make life simple, Jenny.
Yes.
And I went to a business school where the answer is it depends. But anyway,
Yeah,
ask the
yeah.
question.
So the young people less than 25 years of age are hitting depression, stress, lost energy because of too much distractions and too many options they have. As a young ambassador, what inputs you would like to give to youngsters where they can just sort their life and keep their life simple, as he said? Thank you.
That's such a relevant question. And I think that's been one of my greatest struggles as well. I think burnout is becoming our generation and generations after me's one of our biggest challenges. And that is, I think, closely connected to social media. I feel like this burning feeling of wanting to do everything, be everywhere, is what's causing the young people to spread themselves so thin that they have a cycle of burnout every 6 months from a report I was reading actually. And burnout has long-term consequences on us, on our physical health, on our mental health. And I think really the only solution to that has to become turning inward. And I know it sounds almost spiritual. And I can imagine that a 22-year-old will be like, what do you mean? Like, what does turning inward mean? And maybe that's something that can only come by the time you're 28, 29. But if someone had told me that, you know, turn inward, take a step back, focus on the things you really care about, and chase what you really want, whether it could be becoming the biggest businessman in the country, or it could be becoming a humanitarian. But be laser focused and don't try to be everywhere and do everything. That's one. And I think the other is that our generation is constantly feeling like they have been undone. You know, I think the pandemic gave us a feeling where if we can't even experience college life the way it was meant to be lived, if we were put behind Zoom screens instead of being on a college campus, and if we have a climate crisis looming over us, we're just constantly feeling angry and undone. And I think that is a frustration and anger that we take out on other elements of our life. So really, young people have to galvanize together to ease off some of these frustrations, and conversations are an incredible way to do that.
Absolutely. Sangha, I'll have to check your birth certificate. She's too wise. Huh? But I'm sure you
Really
are.
interesting. Thank you.
The lady wants to ask a question. Yes, and then we'll go to the lady there.
Good afternoon, Sanjana.
Good afternoon.
I am Padma. I am from government. So before the talk, I was also the key speaker in one of the sessions. So my question is, since in government, since you are in a UNDP and you have seen the bird's eye view, and you have the comparative viewpoint of the other countries also. So as per the data, our parliament, the average age of our parliament representation is 55 years, whereas in the UK, in the USA, in the other European countries, it is 45.
Yeah.
So are we facing the leadership crisis in youth in our country? Thank you.
So, ma'am, thank you for your question. And last year, actually, I had the opportunity to give the opening keynote at the United Nations General Assembly, where this is all I spoke about. Even from a global perspective, youth representation in parliaments is less than 8%. And that's exactly where I started with Sir, where I really feel like if young people don't get a seat on the tables of change, by which I mean parliaments, I mean NGOs, private organizations across the board, you're not going to see that kind of representation and therefore result. I don't think any of these true struggles of ours ever come out in even the mainstream media. I don't think it's ever spoken about that with an AI world today where jobs will stand altered. Are we even equipped with a youth force that's capable of taking up these new jobs and things like that? And I think young people are the best to represent those challenges. And we're hoping that we hone a generation of young leaders where they find themselves trickling up the food chain so that their voices can be heard. And until then, I think people will have to speak on their behalf and for them. But I hope that that day comes soon.
And just to first of all, I'll tell you, there is a gentleman, his company is representing MASH, Ashish Birgi. I met him when he was 18, I think he's 33. It was his birthday yesterday, so maybe 34. I think I met a guy called Samyak when he was 18. He runs a skilling company now. I think young people are making their voice heard through their work. Second, in politics, I always stay hopeful, but the new BJP president is a young person. Does that mean a change in the kind of people we'll see in leadership everywhere? Who knows? But it's a good start. I mean, I'm not going to give it a political color, whatever, but he's a young person. He's a 45-year young person, right? And overall, the age of achievement is getting younger. Now, if you look at companies being founded, I think in India, in everything, the age of achievement in every sector is coming down. So I'm sure at some stage, that gap will narrow. When, how? I mean, people like her and other people have to work on it. So thank you for asking that question, Padmaji. The lady there, I don't know her name. You wanted to ask Sanjana.
Hi, Sanjana. This is Mansi. I represent Digital Green. Of course, I was listening to the conversations about youth having more access, availability, and of course, usage with regards to AI and, the evolving technology as such. Of course, I understand there is fear and there is, some anxiety in terms of how these evolving tools and technology would be used by the youth. But at the same time, I think AI and technology overall is very, very powerful in terms of bridging a lot of gap, whether it is, an urban-rural gap or whether it is a gap between the privileged and the not so privileged as such. So as a youth champion, how would you recommend or what would be your recommendation to the youth in terms of using this powerful tool of AI or technology to,
Make a change.
address some of these, issues at the social level, and like the topic says, lead with a purpose as such?
I think for them to be able to use it to garner any kind of social impact or change, there needs to be immense amount of knowledge creation around AI for young people. I think it's as monumental a revolution almost as the internet was in the 2000s, right? The internet came and changed the course of the world forever. And I think AI in exactly the same way 25 years later is doing that. But unless there is structured knowledge gaining that's happening for young people, we're going to use it in a slightly rogue way. And when things are used in a rogue way, they're used in a radical way very naturally too. So for it to be used neutrally and appropriately, I would love to see AI being introduced as a subject within curriculums. I remember we used to have computer classes in school. Those will hopefully now become AI classes where if we're able to responsibly train the largest youth demographic in the world to leverage this incredibly powerful technology, it'll be an invincible force that we'll have. So hopefully that's where we go. And seeing a larger chunk of young people have an impact born in them is another dream, I think the environments we grow up in are so competitive, where we're constantly told that your success will come at the cost of my success, that we simply don't have it in us to believe that if we hold each other's hands, we're going to be able to walk far. And this is like literally pasted in my room, right? Ratan Tata famously said that if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. And that's really the core of it all for me.
I have two children, so I can say that in schools, and I'm not, they'll go to a school they love, and we're grateful for that school. And all schools are good. The best school is home, what you learn from your parents, from your mother, father, grandparents, you learn from brother, sister. But let me also address this. She said that if you could put a cap on the usage of tools by young people, because they're using, I can see my son using it, he's 7, he's in class 12. Second is, actually, AI is creating a huge gap between has and have-nots. It may seem to be creating a democratization, but the people who are creating AI is getting richer and richer. I'm reading this book called The Empire of AI by Karen Ho. She was the first one to do a story on Sam Altman in 2019. She's a journalist, and I mean, the book is scary. Of course, AI helps in early detection of a lot of healthcare issues and then fixing them. It can save a lot of time on processing of, let's say, low-end tasks. So all that it is helping, but it is also creating a different kind of world, which can go rogue. She used that word. So I think we have to tread very carefully. Also, as a nation, we have to keep pace. Of course, India is doing a lot of things right. We have the talent, we have the data sets available to experiment or to train, as they say. But I think singularity was supposed to happen in 2034. I think it'll happen in the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, I don't know. It'll happen much faster. And there are implications. You know, whenever something like this happens, there are huge implications. You can read many books, but this book is lovely. It's called The Empire of AI by Karen Ho. Any other questions? Deepika, you want to ask a question? Deepika is also a winner and an awardee today. I know her personally for the last 14 and a half years, 15 years. She runs Ekam Nyay Foundation, which helps men fight false rape cases, false dowry cases, so on and so forth. She's made 2 movies. She's making a 3rd movie. It's called Martyrs of Marriage, and one's called India's Sons. And what happened? Now she's making a movie. And what happens to children where there is a custody battle, where there is, you know, divorce, and you know, what is the impact on children there? So anyway, any other questions, or can we close? Yes, you work with Sanjana, right? You don't? Or you just volunteered to do the video?
Hello, Namaskar. I am Ratna Singh. I am a young climate activist and also working with MASH with Ashish. So I'm just keeping it very straightforward that as you're an actor as well, so just tell me that how Indian cinema is shaping their content to influence young people towards climate or social issues.
Lovely, yeah, because cinema can be a great.
Also, if you could add, Sanjana, what do you think about there's the increase of violence and acceptance of violence more and more, whether it is web series or mainstream films? What do you think about that?
You know, this is such a almost, it's like a subject that I feel so much about that I almost sometimes get emotional and sometimes feel like within the realms of what I can say, can I really share what I feel? But the truth is that at least I can speak from my personal experience, and being a young actor, you know, just being 5 films in, having led 5 of these films, I used to think growing up that actors don't have agency, whether that's agency of choice, agency of subject, agency of deciding which direction we want to take our stories in, and especially young actors and especially young female actors. But belonging to that exact group, and after having done a film like Dhak Dhak, which is on Netflix in case you all want to watch, it's a story of 4 women of 4 different age groups who are strangers to each other, who decide to go off on this bike ride from Delhi to Ladakh. And it has no male hero. The women are the heroes. And it was made by a big studio, which is Viacom Motion Pictures, and it came on one of the biggest streamers, which is Netflix. I understand how incredibly hard it was to get a film like that made. I know how many battles we had to fight, how many people we had to convince, And I also know how lakhs of women felt heard and seen after having watched that film. And for those lakhs of women, I think even as a young actor, I'll fight that fight 100 times over, even though it's pretty excruciating to do. But the truth is that it's hard. It's hard to get stories made that have subtlety and nuance and speak about something that may not resonate with the larger masses. Unfortunately, violence and showing that kind of jingoistic violence sometimes on screen seems to touch a chord in the heartland. But the reality of that, I think, is that we just need to tell stories of the real world in a more engaging way. I think the gloss and sheen of cinema can come even if we're telling a difficult story. To draw the audiences in. It can have a couple of beautiful songs, it can be shot wonderfully, so that we can talk about real things, but talk about it in an engaging way, because people want to see films that do make them escape their reality a little bit. That is also the truth, and Indian cinema has been escapist historically. So there's all of these factors at play, but I think if we fight hard enough, we can bring out true narratives and real narratives, like luckily people like you are.
Yeah, and can I ask a question? Sometimes I've been shared reels where there are women influencers or big, mid-size, I don't know their following, I have not been. But they're using profanity, words which are unhuman. Forget, I won't say unwomen-like, because I don't want to distinguish between in our home, Prarthana, Prasan are equal. Prasan is the younger one, so he has to, of course, Prarthana is the older one. But, they are talking in lingo that I find offensive. And I understand the more shocking you are on Instagram, you get, especially if you're a woman, and they're saying profanities which I can't even use with my friends, forget anybody else, So what do you have to say to this kind of, and they seem to have so many followers?
I mean, I don't have a very, very deep take on that, because I don't think that content is deep. I think virality can come because of a myriad of illogical reasons, and virality is not what we should be chasing. We should be chasing authenticity.
And impact.
And because that has longevity. So this might spike and have a few million views, but it's going to make no difference to anyone's life in any kind of a positive way.
Thank you so much. We will wrap. Please give Sanjana a big round of applause and wish her good luck. And I'm sure I meet a lot of people, but I'm going to hold you on to you and invite you to some other initiatives that we do, which may be relevant and exciting for you.
Yes,
Hopefully.
I would love that.
Good to know you. I know you as a public person, but good to know your thoughts. Well, please give Sanjana a bigger round of applause. Bigger round.